Welcome to the November 10th Board of Park Commissioners meeting. Abby, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Emmerich?
Here.
Mrs. Westphal?
Here.
Mr. Harrelson?
Here. All right. First order is to approve the minutes from September 12th meeting. Is there a motion for that?
Motion to approve.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Do I need to call the roll on that, Abby? That's not, I forget.
You can.
All right, let's call the roll on that.
Mr. Emmerich?
Yes.
Mrs. Westphal?
Yes.
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
All right. Let's get into our reports. Mr. Drake, start with you, man.
Don't have anything specifically to add to my report. I will comment that with the change of the seasons, it looks like flowers will soon be coming out downtown, unfortunately. So some of that color will go away. We do have a plan for the crosswalk planters for greenery to go back in those, as well as some of the corner urns as well. And the Christmas tree has been picked out, so I won't spill the beans too much on that, but we're already starting to think about Christmas tree cutting and placement of that within, well, probably by the time we meet next time, it may have already been set. So it's coming upon us pretty quickly here.
Okay.
I wanted to say, Menke Park, wow. Really got cleaned up.
Yeah.
A lot of dead trees gone.
So, yeah, just a testament to the work that John Montgomery's done, our new arborist that, hired the second time around. I say new, but he worked for us years ago, but is back on board with us and doing just a phenomenal job. We kind of had some backlog of tree work that needed to be done, and he's gone through. That's just one example of many where him and the crew have done a phenomenal job helping to get us caught back up. So
Yeah, looks great.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
I'll pass that along.
Awesome. Mr. Seiler's not here. Mr. Boer?
Good afternoon. Yeah, I would just add that, things are starting to slow down just a little bit with shorter days and a little bit cooler weather. We're certainly still busy on days that have any remote amount of sunshine. But yeah, we do have our simulator back up and running, so we'll be, just transitioning to a different kind of busy here pretty soon. So as we've done, or this will kind of be our second go-around with this, but starting in November, we'll move our Pro Shop operations over onto that side of the building. We do have a second simulator unit coming, and so that should be here within probably the next 2 weeks. And so by the time we get to the beginning of November, we'll have a dual setup there in the restaurant area. So we'll and then we'll do some weekly type of games to kind of drum up interest through November and December, and then we'll pick back up with our winter leagues January through March. That was very popular last year, and with two of those now, we definitely anticipate, because we had sort of a wait list, particularly with our afternoon leagues. So definitely anticipating a busy league season here once we get to January.
So the registration for the simulators, that's online? Or do you have to go in person?
Are you talking about like for league play and stuff like that?
Well, yeah. If I want to go use a simulator,
So to use a simulator, yes. Yeah. So there is like an online T-sheet, basically. So yeah, we have, you'll be able, just like last year, you can log on. If you go to our website, there's we have like two different buttons, one for the regular T-sheet and one for the simulator T-sheet. So now you'll have the option to book on Simulator 1 or Simulator 2. And of course you can call us and book time that way. But October hours will be 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then we'll kind of adjust from there.
Cool.
Are the simulators identical, or are they two different?
So with the second one, what we've done, it will be the enclosure is the exact same. The actual launch monitor, which reads all the data, will be different. So the first unit has an overhead launch monitor unit, but when we purchased that one, they did give us an indoor-outdoor unit that's mobile, and so rather than spending an extra $20,000, which is the bulk of it, we're just getting the enclosure kit with that unit, which works essentially the same. It's just one that can be positioned on the floor instead of being stationary on the ceiling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question.
Planning Commission, we'll speak with Austin here later on, so I'll skip that right now, and we'll move into new business. First thing on new business is the discussion of the proposed greens fees and cart pricing for Miami Shores. Kyle, you want to walk us through that?
Sure, yeah, if you go to the last page of my report, this is a little bit different than previous years, so this is obviously our first full calendar year of being year-round operational. So for Will, I mean, in starting last year was the first time we left the golf course open January, February. Obviously with the addition of simulators, just made sense to give that option to be open year-round. So in doing that, what I'm proposing moving forward, if we're going to be open year-round, would be to have, kind of 3 seasons pricing-wise instead of 2. So, we call it a shoulder season, so it would run, if approved, from October 16th through the end of November. Then we would get into what we have in the past called winter rates, and run them through, kind of the actual winter time frame. Those we would try to get approved at the following meeting. So this would just be today would just be for the rates, kind of a split between our regular summer season versus what they would be in winter. So kind of an in-between period for right now.
And when you come up with your rates, Kyle, you're going around looking at other courses in the area?
Yep, yeah, so we were kind of definitely, this year we ended up maybe $1 or $2 less than some other facilities in our area, so, that'll be something that we look at when we, try to get the 2024 prices approved, but yes, to answer your question, these are well within line of other facilities.
And so what you're looking for is basically just an approval of this? Is that a motion then to approve that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from us at all? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And I'll second that.
Thank you.
Abby, call the roll.
Mr. Emmer?
Yes?
Mrs. Wessel?
Yes.
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Awesome. Next is the recommendation to the Planning Commission to accept private open space maintained by an HOA for the proposed Somerset Reserve subdivision. Austin, you want to come speak to that?
Yes, sir. So we received an application for the Somerset Reserve subdivision. This is located off of West Market Street and Nashville Road. This includes 189 buildable lots that are 12.54 acres of 21.6% of private open space is what they're proposing. In accordance with the subdivision regs, section 1117.06, the Planning Commission may agree to accept private open space in lieu of public parkland or fees in lieu of. The applicant is requesting to provide that 21.6% of private open space that will be maintained by the HOA. They are also proposing park equipment, but I don't have a whole lot of detail on the exact equipment at this point in time. Staff has requested that the Board of Park Commissioners recommend to the Planning Commission a positive recommendation to accept private open space due to the following. Kennington Park is less than a mile away. The comprehensive plan states that Troy is nearly 5 times the recommended park acreage, and the Park Department staff cannot maintain more inventory of parkland. And that'll conclude my report.
So this is out on Nashville Road?
Yes, sir.
And you said how close is the closest park to it?
It's less than a mile. I think it's like 0.7 miles.
Okay. And then it's stated in here that basically the park department is not going to have to maintain that land. That'll be maintained by the HOA, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions or conversation here?
Also, does it look like on the layout plan, those walking paths kind of around the stormwater ponds?
Yeah.
Generally, they're kind of designing their own similar use space.
Yeah, so they're
serve the same purposes.
Staff asked them to do that because they're requesting plan development. So that plan development requires additional open space. So if they're just providing their detention ponds as open space, it either needs to be upsized or they need to provide a pedestrian amenity. So we asked for that pedestrian amenity.
But you're saying they're there is for sure gonna be other park equipment, or possibly?
Yes, so there's gonna be park equipment, down in like the southeast corner. It says, proposed playground. It's off of,
So right there on the corner?
right there on the corner.
Okay. So like swing sets, or what are we talking about?
I don't have the specifics on that. It just says proposed playground equipment, so I apologize.
So if
Okay.
we, make the motion, to the planning commission, there could be a scenario where there's not that playground built, long-term, we don't have that written in here, right? So, that's not a requirement of, it's not contingent upon playground equipment or anything like that, right?
Well, so this submittal, as it's seen here, is reviewed and approved by the planning commission and ultimately city council for the plan development. So we would hold them to whatever's referenced on the plan.
As part of the PD.
As part of the PD.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think it's great that a pedestrian path, when we did our review a couple of months ago, there's some of that green space and some of the subdivisions that could use, pedestrian path to help give it some definition or purpose. So if they're doing that as part of the PD, it's an easy sell for me.
And like I said, I like the fact that they're, maintaining the space, because we've run into some of those issues as well, so, I have no issue, there. Susan, any other comments for you?
I don't.
I'll make a motion to, approve, and, send up to the planning commission a positive recommendation, to accept the open space, as stated in, Austin's report.
Thank you.
And I will second.
Abby, you want to call the roll?
Yep, Mr. Emmer?
Yep.
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Alrighty. All right, the next note we have on here, obviously the last couple of park board meetings, we've run into some, issues, with, signage has came up multiple times, right? And we've also had, not only signage came up, we've had, advertisements put up on park board property. So, through that process, last time we had, I believe it was Adam Boyd, his name is part of the Troy Football Parents Association, come up and speak to us kind of about that in that scoreboard process. And since there was a contract signed, since there was some steps taken outside of our control, we kind of reached out to the city council and legal to get some guidance on what that is and what that looks like. And so, one of the big things that have came away from this process is really twofold. It's one is the review of what happened with that scoreboard going up there, and then second is us, in the park board and working with the city, making sure that we have some type of policy in place or some type of guidelines for sponsorships moving forward, right? Because we really don't have anything, and we've kind of talked about it a little as far as a master plan, and this is one of those things that hasn't been refined as well. So one of the things we have on here is a draft policy for sponsorships from a park board standpoint. So this is right now in draft, but I wanted to make sure that we could get a hold of it, we could review this together. It would be something as other organizations come forward with us, right? If we're in agreement, we want to end up moving forward and passing this when it's finalized, that we're going to try to hold them to as well. So, Jeremy, I know it's something that, you get approached on a lot, right? We'll just make sure that, hey, now we kind of have some guidelines, we can move forward if someone does approach us, right? So regarding the talking, kind of the discussion about the Little League side of things is, where do we go from here, right? They signed a contract that they didn't have authority to sign, right? And so we're going to have to go back to them, to Adam, and kind of explain, some of the things that are needed for us to move forward with it. So I feel bad that he's not here right now. We can't do that, so I want to make sure that we can kind of communicate, outside the meeting to him as well. But, essentially, we need to make sure that he understands that, he cannot, and nor can any organization enter into agreements on a City of Troy property, right? That's something that only the city can do, and so that agreement, therefore, is null and void there. So, We are going to allow them to recoup some of the costs that they spent. We want to make sure that they're whole on that, but need to understand that any revenues after that point will go back to the city. So that's something we need to make sure that Adam understands as well.
So, just to clarify, so like the baseball fields, when they put up signage, that goes to the city?
It goes to the permanent improvements of the property. So we can define that a little better. We don't have that, like I said, we have draft language here about that, but, we basically said that it should go to the permanent improvements made on the property. So it's
So they can't fundraise?
fundraise, yeah, it's fundraising if it goes back into the property or into the improvements made on the property.
Okay, so they can't buy
fundraise
equipment?
as long as it stays with the park board
Yeah, there you
for
go.
their benefit, but
Okay.
it's park board.
Well, I think it's
So
part of.
they can't buy
revenue.
equipment, but they could pay for a building? What are you talking about?
Well, we have draft language, like I said, the draft language is not finalized, right? So
Okay.
this is what's in front of us right now. This is what I want you to make sure that you guys can review and be okay with, okay?
Okay.
But the thought process is we can't just having them advertising on public property, outlining or, putting funds into who knows where it's going, right? And it's going back into the permanent structures.
So the
that's the
baseball
overall
field
thought.
does that too? I'm just trying to clarify. So when they put up their signs for fundraising, they're putting their funding back into maintaining?
Well, we don't actually have a policy in place on that right now. We have nothing after that, so I can't really speak to what they're doing
Okay, so
right
I'll
now.
just
But
look over this.
I'm saying moving forward, we need to have kind of more of a defined strategy on how that's outlined. Would you agree, because we haven't been approached with any fundraising, advertising, solicit, it's been, one time in 8 years, and all of a sudden we've had 4 in the last 6 months, right?
Yeah.
So, we need to draft up some type of language for it.
Right,
And
right,
so,
but I want them to be able to fundraise too.
yeah, yeah. Well,
And sometimes it's difficult.
yeah,
You can
yeah.
only-
I think it's, I don't think we're saying no fundraising. I think we're just want to make sure that we're understanding where those funds are going, right?
Sure.
Since it is city property.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have draft language that was submitted to us in cooperation with Mr. Terrington. I do want us to review that, to take a look at, to make sure that we feel good about this, and in the next park board meeting, we can make a push for some type of policy or some type of guidelines as far as if this request comes back to us again, because we haven't had that in the past.
I think this is great, high-level bullet point kind of language
Yeah,
to
sure.
consider.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
When I first saw this and was thinking about it, I'll put a dirty little secret of the legal profession on the public record. Lawyers look at what other people do when they come up with things. And I found some of the other municipalities in Ohio had some workable alternative policy, language of how to deal with sponsorship. So I think we can probably cobble together from, looking at how some other cities have addressed this in the past, which, I kind of say that tongue-in-cheek because most of the city ordinances or code sections are replicated across municipalities, right?
Sure.
So there's some really, I think, productive, helpful, instructive language out there as to how to make decisions about certain sponsorship requests and what kind of criteria is appropriate to use. And I think we should take this and then build upon it to come up with the final product.
Okay. I think that's the goal, right?
Yeah,
If we've
absolutely.
never had anything, like I said, obviously, we've had a lot of attention as of late on this. We need to put some contract on it around our side, right? And so,
Absolutely.
if we're saying it's not finalized, I'm not coming here today to say, let's approve it. I'm coming here today to say this is the draft language. As the scenario popped up, we need to make sure that we have some draft language to go with it, right?
I would agree.
So, Susan, the biggest dilemma that you, I think, identify is the concept of, does whatever we come up with allow for any revenue generation for anyone other than the city?
Correct.
And my understanding of the way it legally is that it must be productive to the city. and I know Grant's not here and Patrick's not here, but Jeremy, is that?
That was my understanding, yes. So perfect examples like for junior football with the sponsorships on the scoreboard, that money went back into their fund for uniforms, helmets, shoulder pads, those kind of things, rather than real property at Duke Park. So, I think that this addresses that more specifically.
But that just may not be able to be that may not be able to be a fundraising opportunity for the organization through this kind of advertising work.
Right.
They might just not be able to do fundraising through this.
Okay.
May
I
it
just
be-
want to make sure that it's across the board, you know, baseball,
Well,
you know.
Well, I mean, I think that's the point, is we don't have anything, so we need to put some framework around what that is, right?
And I've been a fundraiser, and I
Yeah,
know how
sure,
difficult it
sure.
is to raise funds.
Yeah. Well,
And that was a corporate way to, you know, get some major chunks
Yeah.
of money.
Well,
Yeah.
and how I look at this is, if we are able to utilize sponsorships to generate revenue to improve the facilities, then maybe we can take a burden off of the groups that are using it, and to some extent, right? And then if we know that they can't generate revenue from sponsorships from this, well, then they're going to have to look elsewhere, but at least we can focus what we can do to improve the facilities that they're using. So that's one less thing to worry about, but then obviously it's going to be up to them to figure out other ways to generate operating revenue.
So maybe they can use this to get their practice field set up.
But, I mean, that certainly is, you know, a possible use of funds that get raised from something like this is, you know, whatever would be improvements to their facilities.
Okay.
So like I said, this is draft language. I want us to make sure that we can review this and provide feedback on this. Getting through back to the Little League football situation that we have at hand, Jeremy. So we need to go back to Adam on this, and I have some language I can share with him. But basically, you know, since they entered into that agreement there, you know, they didn't have authority to do so, being the fact that it was city property. We are allowing them to recoup any costs and things like that they've spent so far, but after that, they need to go back to the city. They have some language agreed there that we need to go back to them as far as they need to work on as far as an addendum to that contract. And I have some language I can go over that addendum with you as well. So we need to go back to that.
Is that something that, you know, Grant can handle on behalf of us to reach out to, you know,
Yeah.
that company and?
Yeah, we did discuss that. I didn't know if Adam was going to be in attendance, or the Troy football
Yeah.
parents were going to be in attendance today. So, but yeah, we can go back and put some language around that. We had reviewed the contract and what we could live with and not live with.
So that signage this year, the funds raised can go into maybe paying for the cost of the scoreboard?
Yeah, there was some cost out of pocket there.
Okay.
So, yes, but then there's
Because
also...
that's now officially the city of Troy's property.
It is. And so, you know, there's some term limits that we have to go and put back on that contract. There's some indemnification for the city that we need to put on there.
Okay.
There's still the old scoreboard that's sitting there that needs to be removed and disposed of immediately. So we still have some of that language that we have to go back to them with.
Do we know yet if the vendor is going to agree with these things, or have we not reached out to them, or?
We do not. We're allowed
Okay.
the Troy football parents. So that's why we're trying to come with a, you know, amicable solution halfway through, but we have to make sure that we do put some firm language around that. So.
Okay.
Alrighty. So, I want you to review the sponsorship right now, and we'll make sure that we can discuss and provide feedback on that. And then what I'd like to do is firm up that language so that we have something that we can kind of move forward within our next park board meeting, so that gives us a little bit of time. Okay?
And then Mr. Kerber will ultimately draft something that will...
Sue, do you want to speak to that at all? Is that was your recollection too, right? Is Grant's going to end up reaching back out?
Your final policy would, of course, be subject and reviewed by Mr. Kerber before it would be finalized. And then eventually if there were any future advertising, it would go through a process similar to what we did for the T-signs at the golf course, where it was formally been advertised by the city, meeting all the city's contractual language, et cetera, at that point.
For our existing contract addendum information, that's going to be Grant, though, going back?
I do believe so,
Okay.
and we can clarify that with him.
Okay. All right. The next item we have on here is we have we'll put that, I guess we can throw this under new business. It's memorandum of understanding, and this is between the Park Board of Commissioners, the Troy City Schools, in the city of Troy, regarding regarding park space and the plan for new schools. So we're just handed this as far as...
I think we should probably modify the agenda and add that as a separate line item, just so that it's...
Okay. Can we do that?
I move to add letter D to new business, being this memorandum of understanding, as an amendment to the agenda.
I'll second that. I'll have that on record. Understanding. So we were handed this.
Yeah, do you want...
Yeah,
No.
I'm sorry about that. Yep, Abby, can you call the roll now?
Mr. Emmer?
Yes.
Mrs. Westfall?
Yes.
Mr. Harrelson?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thanks. So regarding that, I want to make sure that we can kind of review this as it goes out. What we're doing here is there is a exchange in somewhat of ball fields that are available to us as or to the city of Troy and those who use our parks. So we would be giving up space, but we would be getting space as well in terms of ball fields that are out there. So it's pretty spelled out as far as what parks are in question. We have which ball fields are in question. And we have some proposed drawing with the new ball field sites attached as well. But what I'd like to do is make sure that we can review this and be prepared to speak on that in our next meeting as well. So, Will, any comments or discussion on that one?
Yeah, I think as this document came to be, the final paragraph on the first page, there's some pretty standard language that states that this is not a contract itself. It's simply, akin to a letter of intent or an expression, as a memorandum of understanding, some expression of the desire of all the parties to do something reflecting this outline. Mm-hmm. Because obviously not only the legalese, but just the detail that will be required to effectuate all the things listed here is going to require, pages upon pages of direction. So I think that it is an understandable document that sets forth what the trade-offs are going to be in some of the park properties and how that's going to be addressed. But obviously, there's going to be far more detail and negotiation in the future to specify exactly how this will come to be.
So you still want to hold off based off of that? Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to read through it.
Yeah, that's fine. I know it's the first time, so. Okay, Sue, is there a timeline for that? If the next park board meeting, will that still align with timelines, or would we need to have like a...
When I was asked to give this to you before the meeting, it was with the understanding that you could consider it today or at your next meeting, so I presume that is acceptable.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
This is all contingent upon the levy passing in and of itself, so
Right.
We shall see.
Moving on to, well, real quick, is there any other new business to come before we move on to our next note? Okay. Our next note is basically acknowledging a check from the William Mayer Successor Trust into the Parks Department, so we're very appreciative of that. And with that being said, I'll take a motion to adjourn, if nothing else.
So moved.
I'll second. All right. Adjourn.